Welcome back to Franchise Player, and today we're checking out some racing games on the PS Vita. Unlike a lot of other genres on the Vita that might have lacked selection, like first-person shooters for example, the Vita actually had a pretty decent amount of racing games to choose from. All of the racing games that we're checking out today are definitely worth a playthrough in my book, so sit back, relax, and let's get right into this racing goodness. First up here, we're starting off strong with Need for Speed Most Wanted 2012. So this game originally came out back in October of 2012. And this was not only on the Vita, but it was also on home consoles at the time. This had a release on PS3, 360, and even the Wii U. Need for Speed Most Wanted definitely reviewed pretty well. I mean, I remember even when this game came out, people were pretty excited about it, especially to have it on handheld. And I will say, even today, this game graphically definitely still holds up. It might look a little worse than the console counterparts like on the PS3 and the 360, but this game also reviewed pretty well too. It came in at a 79 on Metacritic. I think this game might have deserved a flat 80. I think it sounds a bit better, but overall, having this game in handheld was a game changer for the time. In terms of visuals with lighting, colors, the detail of the cars, if you're really taking everything into consideration, I would maybe put this in like top 10 best looking Vita games. I know this game doesn't look as good as the PS3 and 360 versions, but this is one of the few examples that us Vita fans had where it was like, hey, this game really showed the raw power of the Vita and showed that this little handheld console could truly compete and basically put out home console quality games. Unfortunately, we didn't see a ton of that due to Sony and PlayStation basically giving up on the Vita, but this was a bright light for the Vita, and I definitely think this is still worth playing. If you are itching to play it, I highly recommend it. And this is also one of the few Vita games too where you can actually still play this online. It's not super populated, but if you are wanting to hop on with some buddies, this one, is still up and still playable online. Next up here, we have probably my favorite racing game on the PS Vita, which is Sonic and AllStars Racing Transformed. This game came out here in the States back in December of 2012. I don't know what it is, but I feel like the Sonic racing games are still criminally underrated, and I understand a lot of people are gonna favor Mario Kart, right? And I think this series is definitely overshadowed by Mario Kart, obviously. But I personally think this game is better than Mario Kart 7 on 3DS. That might ruffle some feathers, dude, but yeah, I don't know. I definitely think this game is awesome and super underrated as a racer. I think the maps are bright and colorful, the tracks are fun, and I think the characters are really cool too, especially if you're a Sega fan. This game did end up getting a 75 on Metacritic, at least the Vita version did, and speaking of that, this game came out on a ton of different platforms. You could get this not only on the Vita, but the 3DS, the PS3, the 360, and the Wii U as well. This is the Vita racing game that I've probably put the most time into by far. This was probably about a year and a half back, maybe 2 years ago now, but I don't know what it was, but I was playing this game constantly. It was easy just to pick up and play before bed, or if I had a quick break at work or something like that, and I was grinding on this game, dude. I don't know if it was just the Sega characters, the tracks, what it was, but speaking of the tracks are also incredible. You have stuff from like Super Monkey Ball, Sonic games, of course, Panzer Dragoon, and then the characters are phenomenal too. Obviously, ton of Sega characters to pick from. My personal favorite was Shadow. I loved Shadow growing up, and playing a Shadow in a racing game, pretty hard to beat how cool that is. So if you're looking for a kart racer on Vita, I highly recommend this game. The power-ups are fun to use. The power-ups aren't anything mind-blowing, but hey, they're standard enough, which is cool for me. The characters are all pretty fun to use, and each of them feel different and kind of have their own abilities or weaknesses or strengths. And the gameplay is just overall really addicting. I think it's everything I would personally want in a kart racer. This is one you can just pick up and play, or you can really grind it out and try to get through as many of the maps as you can and unlock different characters. So I think there's pretty much something here for everyone. If you're looking for a kart racer on Vita, look no further. Can't recommend this one enough. Next up here, we have Spy Hunter, which came out for the Vita and the 3DS back in October of 2012. This was actually the second time they had tried to reboot the Spy Hunter series. So I think the first one originally came out back in the 80s, I want to say 83. And then the reboot before this had come out on the 6th generation of consoles back in 2001. So I guess in 2012, they thought it was a good time to try to kind of redo the Spy Hunter series and maybe bring some life back to it. This game did get some pretty rough reviews. It has a 51 on Metacritic, and I can definitely see why from a reviewer's perspective, especially back then. Graphics wise, this was not really doing too much for most people. I mean, as you can see the visuals here, it doesn't really look like a game that would be on Vita. Definitely more a 3DS looking game. Mind you, the 3DS had some great looking titles, but this, doesn't really do too much. To me, it almost looks like a game that is kind of towards the end of the PSP life cycle almost graphically. But if you've never heard of the Spy Hunter series and want to give it a shot, it's basically a vehicular combat game. This one in particular, I think, is pretty fun. I mean, don't let the graphics kind of, scare you off. Even with this visually not being an amazing game, I think the gameplay is pretty fun. And for me, I think is one of those games that is really good just to pick up and play, knock out a level, especially if you only have a couple minutes to play something. Next up here, we're taking a look at Ridge Racer, which came out here in the States back in March of 2012. And this is the lowest rated game, I would say by far on the list today. This has a 44 on Metacritic, and there's a little bit of depth to that. It's not like, hey, this game is trash and that's why it has a 44 and everyone hated it. No, I think the gameplay is pretty solid. It's good old Ridge Racer action, but the main critique on this game is that it felt like more than half the game, or like 3/4 of the game, was basically locked behind a paywall. So if you don't know, a majority of this game, including cars and tracks, are locked behind DLC on the PlayStation Store. So you only have, I think it's 3 cars that are available, or excuse me, it's 3 courses and 5 cars that are available, and the rest of the game is behind DLC. So that turned a ton of people off, especially back in 2012, which, don't get me wrong, DLC was still pretty popular back then. It wasn't nearly as mainstream today, especially with like microtransactions. But yeah, definitely a huge L on this game for locking so much on the PlayStation Store. Outside of the ridiculous DLC, I will say, man, this game is pretty fun. The gameplay is smooth. I think if you've played a Ridge Racer game, I definitely think you'll like this game if you're a fan of kind of that arcade racing style. I think the cars look good. I think the tracks and the maps and all of the details and the elements look good. I think the sound is fairly decent as well, like from the actual soundtrack of the game to the cars. And, outside of, there not being a whole lot of content, right out of the box, unless you shell out your wallet, I would say this is a pretty fun game, man. And for a Vita title at the time, I think graphically it was definitely up there as one of the better looking Vita titles. And I don't think this game is too expensive. If you want it physically, you can get it, I think, fairly cheap. I want to say this is maybe like a $20 game, but yeah, if you don't mind the whole DLC thing and you're kind of okay with the little amount that they give you on the cartridge, might be worth picking up. Last but not least, I had to put Wipeout 2048 on this list. This is easily one of the best looking games on Vita and was one of my favorite racing games on Vita for a long time. This is probably top 2 for me. I love, the Sonic racing game, of course, but Wipeout 2048, there's been times where it's been my favorite because this game is flat out addicting. This game was also a fairly early Vita release. It came out back in February of 2012, and then this also reviewed pretty well, as it should. I mean, because this game is still really fun even to this day. It got a 79 on Metacritic, so a pretty well-rounded game in terms of reviews as well. One of the best parts of this game is, unlike some other racing games, whether it's kart racers or just maybe an arcade racing game or sometimes even a sim racing game, in Wipeout, it feels like you are constantly hauling ass. Like in this game, it feels like you are easily going, 200 plus miles an hour every second of the race pretty much. And every time you hit one of these arrows that's like a speed boost and you chain like 2 or 3 of them in a row, it's a really addicting feeling. I don't know what it is, but when you're in a race and hit a couple of these, it just feels great. Like this game is incredibly addicting. The power-ups are pretty fun to use in this too, and like the abilities. They're not as like arcadey obviously as something like Mario Kart or Sonic and AllStars Racing, but regardless, they're still pretty fun to use. If you could only get one game on this list, I would maybe have to urge you to get Wipeout 2048, dude, because this game is addicting. The replayability is there. It's another great game where I feel like most racing games do this though, to be honest, but it's really easy just to pick up and play a race or two, put it down, get on with your day. But graphically, this game has definitely stood the test of time. Still one of the best looking Vita games in my opinion. And once again, really just goes to show how much missed opportunity we had with the Vita. If a game this gorgeous came out back in 2012, imagine what PlayStation could have been releasing on the Vita in, let's say, like 2015 if they would have continued to support the console. But nonetheless, really fun racing game. Highly recommended if you have the chance to pick it up. All right, so that'll do it for today's racing games on Vita. Let me know some of your favorite racing games on Vita. I'll have a part 2 of this later on down the road of maybe some lesser known racing games on Vita, because there's actually a decent amount of racers on this handheld. If you have any games that you recommend on the Vita, whether they're racing titles or anything else, let me know, man. I'm always down to check out some new games. But as usual, appreciate you guys for watching, and we'll catch you soon with another video.